obviously things are escalating between Russia and Ukraine. According to the Wall Street Journal, a half dozen U.S. ballistic missiles fired by Ukraine slammed into an ammunition depot some 75 miles across the Russian border early on Tuesday, setting off further detonations that turned the sky red. The following morning, 10 British-provided cruise missiles pounded the vicinity of a Kremlin-run sanatorium that was apparently used as a military headquarters, smashing one after another in the town of Marino, located in Russia's Kursk region, about 20 miles from the front line there. So Ukraine is now taking advantage of longer-range U.S. munitions in order to attack inside Russia. Meanwhile, Russia, the other day, used an intercontinental ballistic missile to fire conventional weaponry. The goal there, obviously, was to sort of threaten the possibility of using nuclear weapons at some point using an ICBM, because you don't have to use an ICBM in order to fire conventional weapons. Again, right now, the Biden administration presumably is trying to up the ante in Russia in an attempt to force Putin to the table. Now, again, do I think that's necessarily a bad thing? No, I just think it's delayed and it's belated. And right now, Putin is incentivized to hold out because he believes that the Trump team coming in might cut him a better deal than the Biden team would. But that's only because the Biden team was never looking for a deal. The Biden team had no actual end goal here. And that absence of leadership, the worst possible policy, by the way, a vacuum of leadership, no goal, and no means aimed at the actual goal that Zelensky wanted, which, again, if you want to free the Donbass or you want to free Crimea, you need to give them more weapons. Biden wasn't giving them more weapons and then maintaining the goal of freeing those territories. And the result has been just a stagnating war with hundreds of thousands of people dead. The lack of leadership by the United States is obvious and clear. The same thing, by the way, holds true over the weekend. Late last week, there's an announcement by the disgusting, corrupt, and anti-Semitic International Criminal Court. They issued an arrest warrant for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel and his former defense minister, Yoav Gallant, accusing them of war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza. They also, in order to suggest a moral equivalence, issued an arrest warrant for Mohammed Daif, who is dead. Right? He was the military chief of Hamas, and he was killed in an airstrike months ago. The ICC arrest warrant is ridiculous and disgusting. The claim is that Israel was deliberately attempting to starve the Palestinians. And let me explain how insane that is. Israel has shipped in, I kid you not, 1 million tons of food aid into the Gaza Strip. Tons, not pounds, tons. Okay, you're talking about 1 billion pounds of food aid shipped into the Gaza Strip in the middle of a war in which Hamas, with the help, yes, of some civilians, is currently holding Israelis and Americans hostage. And the ICC decided that it was going to move forward with this arrest warrant. Now, part of this was an attempt by the prosecutor in this case to avoid the fact that he's now been hit with a sexual harassment allegation. Apparently members of both sexes, by the way. And so he was attempting to misdirect away from that by issuing an arrest warrant. The ICC arrest warrant doesn't apply in a bunch of places that don't abide by the ICC. So, for example, the United States is not a signatory to the International Criminal Court. Why? Because we are aware that it is, in fact, a repository of evil dictatorial states and their European dupes. And so what we were concerned about as Americans is that they would then attempt to arrest, for example, members of the American military who served in Afghanistan or who served in Iraq. And by the way, this is something the Trump administration should, in fact, be worried about, because if you are a signatory to the ICC and the ICC issues an arrest warrant, then you now have a legal duty under the ICC. They have no enforcement mechanism. How does someone actually get arrested? The answer is if you're a signatory to the ICC, and let's say that Vladimir Putin, who also has been condemned by the ICC, he's also an arrest warrant target. If he lands in an ICC signatory state, that state now has the obligation, legal obligation as a signatory to the ICC to arrest that person. Okay, so if you think that that won't be attempted on Donald Trump, you're out of your mind. This is why the United States is not a signatory to the ICC. This used to be a sort of bipartisan understanding, is that the ICC was a trash organization that manipulates the very idea of international law, which doesn't exist in the first place, in order to militarize and weaponize against the opponents of some of the world's worst regimes. We'll get to more on that in just a moment. First, using the internet without ExpressVPN is like handing your phone to a stranger to take your photo. Sure, most of the time you get it back, but what if they don't just walk away with your phone, but with all your personal information as well? Let me tell you something that might shock you. Hackers don't need to be elite cybercriminals to steal your data. Every time you connect to a public Wi-Fi at a cafe, hotel, airport, anyone on that same network can potentially access your personal information. We're talking passwords, financial details, everything. Here's the disturbing part. With some basic hardware, even a tech-savvy teenager could hack your device while you're just sitting there ordering your morning coffee. Your personal data is incredibly valuable. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling information on the dark web. That's why I've been using ExpressVPN for years. It creates a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. How secure? It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to break through their encryption. That's not just security, that's peace of mind. Unlike other security products that require an IT degree to understand, ExpressVPN is incredibly simple. One click, you're protected. It works on all your devices, phones, laptops, tablets, everything. So you can stay secure whether you're at home or on the go. Right now, you can take advantage of ExpressVPN's Black Friday Cyber Monday offer to get the absolute best VPN deal you'll find all year. Scan that QR code on screen, click the link in the description, or visit expressvpn.com/Ben Shapiro Show. Again, when you visit my special link, you get 4 extra months with the 12-month plan, 6 extra months with the 24-month plan, totally free. That's expressvpn.com/Ben Shapiro Show. So again, the proof is in the pudding. They're not just doing it against Netanyahu. They're doing it also against Yoav Gallant, his defense secretary, his former defense secretary, who was basically fired by Netanyahu and became sort of an opposition figure for a while. The ICC attempt is now, it's becoming very clear what they're doing. So yesterday, the International Criminal Court, after issuing these arrest warrants, and a bunch of states said, we're not going to abide by this. Argentina said they're not going to abide by it. Hungary said they're not going to abide by it. Because that happened, the ICC is now signaling that it may revoke the arrest warrant for Netanyahu and Gallant if there is what they call a credible investigation into charges of genocide and famine in the Gaza Strip by figures inside Israel. Which figures inside Israel? I'll let you guess. Okay, the answer is that there are figures inside Israel who are, in fact, allied with things like the ICC. Remember when I said earlier in the show, the deep state is present in an enormous number of jurisdictions across the globe, whether you're talking about a deep state in Brazil that is currently targeting Jair Bolsonaro, or a deep state in Israel that is, in fact, targeting Netanyahu. There are, in fact, career appointees in a wide variety of administrative agencies across the world who are directly opposed to the elected governments of these particular places and will use their power in order to stifle the agenda of those particular elected governments. Now, the United States has said already that the incoming Trump administration has already said that they're going to take severe measures against the ICC. Hamas is celebrating the ICC, by the way. This tells you exactly what you need to know about the International Criminal Court. Right? They are so moral. They are so decent. Again, in the International Court of Justice, which is another UN agency, the International Court of Justice, South Africa brought a case against Israel for genocide. South Africa did, which is a place of tremendous human rights violation. South Africa, they did so almost certainly because Iran was paying them. And so all of these international institutions have been completely weaponized, and that will happen to President Trump. I promise you that as soon as President Trump is not, maybe while he is in office, the ICC, at the behest of some corrupt state, will bring some sort of prosecution against Donald Trump, and then they will try to get the Europeans on the hook to arrest Trump if he were to arrive. Now, frankly, that would be the best thing that ever happened, because no European country is going to arrest the sitting president of the United States. It just shows why this institution should be dismantled wholesale. It's vile and it's disgusting, and it's obviously directed as part of a broader anti-Semitic regime that is happening across the world's institutions. I mean, this is happening at the same time that Iran literally just killed an Israeli in the UAE. Just a random Israeli in the UAE. He was a Chabad rabbi. His name was V. Kogan, 28 years old. He went missing from Dubai on Thursday afternoon. He was murdered by agents of Iran. They just picked him up off the street. They took him 150 kilometers away from where he was kidnapped, and they clearly murdered him. By the way, he must have been mutilated in some way because they had to use methodologies in order to identify the body. The Israeli Prime Minister's office said, quote, "The murder of Zvi Kogan of blessed memory is an abhorrent act of anti-Semitic terrorism. The state of Israel will use all means and will deal with the criminals responsible for his death to the fullest extent of the law." Israel suspects Uzbek citizens with ties to Iran were involved in Kogan's abduction and killing. According to a person familiar with the investigation, authorities in the Emirates have arrested 3 people in connection with the killing. This, of course, is not a giant shock. Iranian agents all around the world have been attempting to kill Israelis for quite a long time. According to the Wall Street Journal, Iranian intelligence agents tried to kill Israeli tourists in Turkey in 2022. They've tried to kill Israeli diplomats, and of course, they've attacked people who are not Israeli either, including the author Salman Rushdie. The targeting of Chabad is particularly egregious, and again, not rare. Islamic terrorists, unfortunately, do tend to target Chabad. Chabad is a Jewish organization that does outreach, Jewish outreach, particularly for tourists. It's very useful. Chabad has emissaries, they're called shluchim. They're all over the world. You'll recall that back during the Mumbai terror attack, maybe a decade ago, They actually went to a Chabad house and murdered everybody at the Chabad house. This is not a giant shock, and it comes amid a growing wave of radical pro-Hamas anti-Semitism that has extended not just into places like UAE, of course, but also into the West.
Are you tired of the lies and the twists of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.